In this video, let's see how to replace your coolant and keep your cooling system in check, and you can do this all by yourself. I have an empty 1.5 with me, and this bike came for a service, as in actual complete service. But I decided to make a separate video on how to change the coolant alone so that it will be easy for you to understand. Now, depending on the motorcycle that you're working with, the location of the drain bolt and also the reservoir tank might vary based on various models. Now, in this case, the reservoir tank is actually placed hidden inside the belly pan of the motorcycle. And this particular one that you see is the reservoir tank. Now, before doing anything further, we need to remove some side panels to get some access to this radiator cap. So I started by removing the seat and removing all the screws and bolts holding the side panels and taking out the side panel completely as shown in the video. Now, since we got some clearance to work with, everyone should note one important thing, that you should never open this radiator cap when the engine is hot. The system will be under pressure and opening it can cause serious injuries and burns. Moving forward, let's open the belly pan to get access to this reservoir tank. This entire belly pan is held by 4 bolts, 2 on each side. So let's get removing it. Once the belly pan is removed, you can actually see the reservoir tank, and the coolant level is slightly below the full mark. Now, before doing anything further, we need to remove one more panel which is held by this one single Allen bolt. So let's remove it. Now, the reservoir tank itself is held by 2 10mm bolts which we need to remove. Now, keeping a pan below to collect the old coolant, let's remove the hose clamp and gently wiggle and remove the hose attaching to the reservoir tank and let the coolant drain completely from the reservoir tank. Now, this particular 8mm bolt that you see on the cylinder block is the coolant drain bolt. We need to remove this using 8mm socket to drain all the coolant out. You can see a slight leak in the coolant, and this is pretty normal, but don't worry, the entire coolant will never come out because the entire system is pressurized and in vacuum. Until you release the vacuum by removing the radiator cap, the coolant will never come out, and only once you loosen or remove the radiator cap completely, the coolant will start draining completely. So now let's remove the radiator cap and drain the coolant. Now, this black tubular thing that you see is a thermostat. Now, thermostat is connected with various hoses, so you can still drain more coolant by pressing these hoses too. You can also try moving your motorcycle from left to right to drain more coolant that is actually stuck inside the radiator and also in the cylinder block. Now, I'm going to flush the radiator using distilled water. You should never use tap water or mineral water to do this process. Since your engine head is actually made of metal, all the channels can corrode if you use regular water. So make sure that you always use distilled water. Now, before doing anything further, let's close the drain bolt. And speaking of drain bolt itself, one thing that you have to note here is the copper washer. If it is scuffed or damaged, make sure that you always replace it to avoid any coolant leak. Now let's snug fit and start filling the radiator with distilled water. Once you see the water is filled till the brim, you can free some air bubble by pressing the hoses connecting to the thermostat valve. Alternatively, you can also start your motorcycle in order to make the water pump spin so that the air will be bled out through the radiator. Once all the air bubble is bled out and the radiator is completely filled with distilled water, let's close the radiator reservoir cap and wait for a couple of minutes until the engine heats up and the radiator fan starts spinning. Once the radiator fan spins, you can turn off your motorcycle and let it cool for some time. Meanwhile, you can focus on cleaning your reservoir tank using the same distilled water. Now let's drain all the distilled water that is there in the radiator and in the engine. You can repeat the same process of adding distilled water and draining it until you see clear distilled water coming out. After making sure that all the distilled water is drained out, close the drain bolt completely, making sure that you don't over tighten it. Now I'm going to fill the radiator with fresh coolant and I'm going to use Motul InUgel Expert for this motorcycle. Always ensure that the bottle that you purchase is sealed, and if it is broken, consider getting it replaced. Now let's fill the radiator completely with coolant, and while doing this process, let's make sure that you remove most of the air bubble out. The process remains the same. You can press the hoses to remove some air and also start the motorcycle to free up some air and push the coolant to circulate throughout the channels of the engine. Once everything is done, let's close the radiator cap one final time. Attach the reservoir tank hose which we removed. Don't forget to secure it with a hose clamp. Once done, attach the reservoir tank onto the motorcycle and secure it with the two bolts that we removed before. Fill the reservoir tank with coolant and top it up till the full level. And that completes the process. Now you can add all the tank panels back which we removed before, and after riding couple of kilometers you might have to top up the coolant based on requirement. The drop in coolant level happens as the air bubble is released. The coolant will be sucked in through the radiator from the reservoir tank. And that's all about this video. Thank you so much for watching Archeonics, and I'll see you in the next one. Just a reminder everyone, the coolant that you drain from your motorcycle, do not just throw away on the roads. This coolant can be harmful for all the animals out there. If they drink it, these can actually harm them and might kill them too. They don't know about this as the coolant will be very sweet and they might drink it and get into trouble. So I'm going to fill the coolant in this bottle and I'm going to give this to any nearby service center so that they can recycle it. Thank you so much guys.